He just wanted to save a life, but he ended up discovering that he was saving his own story. Nam, a humble 25-year-old young man, agreed to marry a rich and unknown woman to lift his brothers out of poverty. What he didn't know is that behind that unlikely marriage lay a secret capable of turning his world upside down. Why did that woman choose him? And what is she really hiding behind that door that has been locked for decades? Stay until the end, because the final revelation will move you and leave you speechless. I would love to know where you are watching from today, and if you are enjoying this, leave it in the comments, and make sure you are subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely won't want to miss. Nam wiped the sweat from his brow as he stepped out of the construction site, the sun setting over Saigon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Another day had come to an end, but for him, it was just another chapter in a life filled with relentless toil. At 25, he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, a burden he had been carrying since he lost his parents at 14. With 3 younger siblings to care for every day, was a struggle to make ends meet, to keep hope alive in their small, run-down house in the outskirts of the city. His stomach grumbled as he realized he had no money left for the bus fare. He glanced at the crumpled bills in his pocket, just enough to buy a few bowls of pho for his brothers, but not enough for his own transport. With a resigned sigh, he decided to walk home instead. The streets were bustling with life-rich aromas wafting from food stalls and laughter echoing from nearby cafes. It was a world filled with color and vibrancy, but for Nam, it often felt like a distant dream. As he walked through a park adorned with lush greenery and blooming flowers, the contrast of his surroundings was stark. He watched as families enjoyed their time together, children running around with ice cream cones, their laughter ringing like music in the air. Nam couldn't help but smile faintly at their joy, remembering a time when he too felt carefree. But those days were long gone, replaced by responsibilities and dreams deferred. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the tranquility of the park. Nam's heart raced as he turned to see a frail, elderly woman struggling against 2 men who were trying to snatch her handbag. Without thinking, instinct kicked in. He sprinted toward the commotion, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Hey, leave her alone!" Nam shouted, his voice firm and commanding. The assailants paused momentarily, caught off guard by his sudden appearance. With a burst of courage, Nam lunged forward, shoving one of the men aside. The other, surprised by Nam's audacity, swung a fist at him. Nam ducked, feeling the rush of air as the punch missed him, and retaliated with a swift kick that sent the man stumbling backwards. "You're not getting away with this," he declared, eyes blazing with determination. The scuffle continued, and within moments the 2 assailants, realizing they were outmatched, fled into the shadows of the park, leaving behind the terrified woman and a shaken Nam. Breathing heavily, he turned to the elderly lady who was now sitting on the ground, visibly shaken. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Nam asked, concern etching his features. He extended a hand to help her up, his touch gentle and reassuring. "Oh, my dear boy, thank you," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "I thought I was done for. You're so brave." She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and admiration, her wrinkled face lighting up with a warm smile. "What's your name?" "Nam," he replied, feeling a sense of pride swell in his chest. "And you?" "Mai," she said, brushing off her dress. "I owe you everything, Nam. How can I ever repay you?" Nam shook his head, a modest smile on his lips. "I didn't do it for a reward, just helping someone in need." Mai's eyes sparkled as she studied him. "You're a rare gem, Nam. Not many would take such risks for a stranger. Please let me take you to dinner. It's the least I can do." Nam hesitated for a moment, his thoughts drifting to his brothers waiting for him at home. But the look of genuine gratitude in her eyes softened his resolve. "All right," he finally said, "but just a quick meal." As they walked side by side to a nearby restaurant, Nam felt a strange mixture of emotions. Here was a woman who had everything, yet she was touched by his humble act. It was a reminder that kindness could come from unexpected places. The restaurant was elegant, adorned with soft lights and a soothing ambiance. Nam felt out of place, the contrast between the opulence surrounding him and his worn-out clothes stark. "Please order whatever you like," Mai insisted, her voice warm and inviting. "Tonight is a celebration of your bravery." Nam looked at the menu the price is making. His heart raced. Maybe just some rice and vegetables," he murmured, his financial constraints surfacing once again. "Nonsense, you saved my life. Order something special," Mai chided gently, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "I insist." With a slight nod, Nam ordered a dish he wouldn't have dared to choose otherwise. As they waited for their food, Mai shared stories of her life, her voice a blend of wisdom and warmth. Nam listened, intently captivated by her tales of struggle and triumph in the business world. "I lost my husband a few years ago," she said, a shadow crossing her face. "He was my partner in everything. Since then it's been hard to find joy in the little things." "I'm sorry," Nam replied, feeling a pang of sympathy. "It must be tough." "It is. But I believe that kindness still exists in this world, and you, Nam, are a shining example of that." He felt a blush creeping up his cheeks, not used to receiving such praise. "Thank you, but I'm just trying to do what's right." Their food arrived, and as they ate, the conversation flowed easily like a gentle stream. Nam shared stories about his siblings, his dreams of becoming an engineer, and the sacrifices he made for his family. Mai listened, her eyes filled with empathy and understanding. Later that evening, as they finished their meal, Mai leaned across the table, her expression serious yet compassionate. "Nam, I've been thinking. You have such a kind heart, and I admire your dedication to your family. I'd like to make you an offer." Nam raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "An offer?" "Yes, I know this may sound unusual, but I'd like to propose that you marry me," she said, her voice steady, yet filled with emotion. Nam's heart raced. "Marry you, but I'm just a poor construction worker. Why would you want to marry someone like me? Because I see something in you that is rare, your selflessness, your strength. I've been alone for too long, and I believe we could help each other," she replied, her gaze unwavering. Nam felt his mind whirl. The offer was tempting, but it felt wrong. "I don't know, Mai. It's a lot to consider." "Take your time," she said softly, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. "But know that this is more than just a business arrangement. I could provide for your family, give you all a better life." He looked down at their hands, the warmth of her touch contrasting with the chill of uncertainty creeping in. "I'll think about it," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, the enormity of her proposal settling heavily on his shoulders. As he walked home that night, the stars twinkling above Nam felt a mix of hope and confusion. The world around him was full of possibilities, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing at a precipice ready to leap into the unknown. Nam sat at the elegantly set table, the soft glow of candlelight flickering against the pristine white tablecloth. The dining room was a world away from the cramped apartment he had shared with his brothers, where meals were often a hastily prepared affair. Here the air was filled with the tantalizing aroma of gourmet cuisine, and the sound of clinking silverware echoed in the spacious room. Yet despite the luxury surrounding him, Nam felt a profound sense of unease. Mrs. Mai sat across from him, her demeanor calm and poised. She was dressed in a tailored black dress that accentuated her graceful figure, her silver hair pulled back neatly. With a warm smile, she looked at Nam, her eyes sparkling with a mix of gratitude and something else, something that made him feel both special and uneasy. "Nam," she began, her voice smooth like velvet. You've done something extraordinary. Today, not many would have risked their safety to save a stranger. Nam shifted in his seat, uncomfortable with the attention. I just did what anyone would have done, he replied, trying to downplay his actions. I couldn't just stand by and watch. But you did more than that. You showed incredible courage. She leaned forward, her expression earnest. I want you to know how much that means to me. He nodded, but inside he felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. How could he accept such praise when he had done it simply because he couldn't bear the thought of someone being hurt? There were too many layers to this situation, and he could sense that Mrs. Mai was a woman of many secrets. As the evening progressed, they shared stories over the exquisite meal. Mai spoke of her life, her career as a successful businesswoman, and the challenges she had faced. Nam listened intently, captivated not just by her words, but by the passion that radiated from her. She had built an empire from nothing, and yet there was an underlying sadness in her voice, a hint of loss that made Nam curious. What about you, Nam? She asked, her gaze piercing through him. What are your dreams? He hesitated, the weight of his responsibilities flashing before his eyes. I wanted to be an engineer, he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But I had to take care of my brothers. They rely on me. There was a brief silence, and Nam could see the flicker of understanding in Mai's eyes. It's not easy to sacrifice your dreams for others, she said softly, but I believe there's a way to balance both. He looked up, surprised by her insight. What do you mean? I mean, she continued, that perhaps there's a path where you can still pursue your passion while ensuring your family is taken care of. Nam felt a warmth in her words, a glimmer of hope that he hadn't realized he needed. But before he could respond, she leaned back in her chair, a contemplative expression crossing her face. Nam, she said suddenly, I want to extend an offer to you. I know this might sound unusual, but I would like to marry you. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap, and Nam's heart raced. Marry me, he echoed, disbelief washing over him. Why would you want to do that? Mai's eyes softened. Because I see in you a kindness and strength that is rare. I've lost so much in my life, and I believe there's a connection between us. I want to provide you and your brothers with the security you deserve. Nam's mind raced with a whirlwind of thoughts. He was both flattered and horrified. This was madness. Mrs. Mai, he stammered, struggling to find the right words. I don't know if that's a good idea. Think about it, Nam, she interrupted gently. You could offer your family a better life. You wouldn't have to struggle anymore. This could be a chance to build a future. His heart sank at the thought. Was he really considering this? The notion of marrying a woman nearly 50 years older than him felt surreal, yet the desperation of his current situation gnawed at him. He looked into her eyes, searching for any hint of manipulation, but all he saw was sincerity. Please, she continued, her voice almost pleading, take some time to think it over. You don't have to answer right away. Nam nodded, but inside, he felt a tumult of emotions, confusion, fear, and an odd sense of hope. He excused himself from the table, needing to breathe, to think. As he stepped into the balcony, the cool night air brushed against his skin, and he gazed out at the sprawling city of Saigon, illuminated like a sea of stars. His thoughts drifted to his brothers, to their hungry faces, and the weight of responsibility he carried. Could he really turn his back on them for a chance at a better life? But at what cost? The very thought of marrying Mai, a woman he barely knew, felt like a betrayal to everything he stood for. Moments later, Mai joined him, her presence a calming balm. You're troubled, she noted, concern etching her features. It's just, all of this is so sudden, he replied, struggling to articulate his feelings. I don't want to be seen as an opportunist. Do you think I'm offering this out of pity? she asked, her tone firm yet gentle. There's no obligation here, Nam. I see potential in you, and I want to help you. I want you to have a chance at happiness. He turned to face her, his heart conflicted. And what about you? What do you want? Mai hesitated, her gaze drifting to the city lights. I want companionship, someone I can trust. I've spent years alone, and I've grown tired of it. I see a future where we can both find what we seek. Nam's thoughts swirled like a tempest. But what if it doesn't work? What if we hurt each other? She stepped closer, looking him straight in the eye. Life is full of risks, Nam, but sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. I believe we could create something beautiful together. Her words struck a chord deep within him, and he felt a flicker of something. Was it hope? The idea of building a life with her despite the age gap and the chaos surrounding them was both thrilling and terrifying. Okay, he finally said, his voice steadier than he felt. I'll think about it. As they stood together on that balcony with the vibrant city of Saigon beneath them, Nam realized that he was at a crossroads. The decision ahead was monumental, and though fear gripped him, a small part of him couldn't help but wonder if this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. A chance to rewrite his future, to escape the shadows of his past, and perhaps to find a place where he truly belonged. Nam stood in the elegant library of Mai's mansion, the vast room filled with towering shelves of books, each one seemingly whispering secrets of the past. It was a stark contrast to the cramped quarters he had shared with his siblings back in their modest home. Yet despite the opulence surrounding him, he felt a tightening knot in his stomach, a sense of unease that had been growing ever since he moved in with Mai. He picked up a leather-bound book, its spine cracked with age, and flipped through the yellowed pages. The scent of old paper filled the air, but it did little to calm his racing heart. He had spent hours trying to understand the woman who had become his wife in the eyes of the world, but the more he learned, the more enigmatic she appeared. Nam, Mai's voice broke through his thoughts, soft yet commanding, as she stepped into the room. She wore a simple silk dress that contrasted sharply with the grandeur of her surroundings. What are you doing here? I was just looking for something to read, he replied, trying to sound casual as he placed the book back on the shelf. Do you have any recommendations? Her lips curved into a slight smile, but there was a flicker of something else in her eyes, a shadow of concern. I have many books, but I think you might prefer something more light-hearted. She hesitated, her gaze wandering to a far corner of the room. There's a collection of poetry over there you might enjoy. Nam nodded, but he felt the weight of her gaze on him, as if she were searching for something hidden beneath his surface. Mai, can I ask you something? He ventured, his voice barely above a whisper. Of course, she replied, her expression shifting to one of earnestness. Why did you really want to marry me? The question hung in the air, heavy and unresolved. It can't just be out of gratitude for saving you that day. May's smile faltered, and she stepped back as if the very air had thickened between them. Nam, Please, he interjected, needing her to understand the urgency of his inquiry. I want to know the truth. You're a successful woman. You could have anyone you wanted, so why me? Taking a deep breath, Mai moved closer, her eyes searching his. I was drawn to you because of your spirit, she said softly. You remind me of someone I once loved dearly, someone I lost long ago. The words struck Nam like a physical blow. He felt the ground shift beneath him, and he struggled to process the implications. Someone you lost long before you were born. Mai continued, her voice trembling slightly. I had a son, Nam. He was taken from me when he was just a child. My life has been a shadow of that loss ever since. Nam's breath caught in his throat. He felt a shiver run down his spine, a mixture of fear and curiosity washing over him. What happened to him? Mai turned away, her gaze drifting to the window where a storm was brewing on the horizon. He was taken from me after a bitter custody battle. My ex-husband, he was a man consumed by greed. He wanted to hurt me, and taking my son was the ultimate act of revenge. The pieces began to fit together in Nam's mind, but he hesitated to voice his thoughts. "And you believe I remind you of him? Not just in appearance," she said, turning back to face him, "but in character. The kindness you showed that day. It was something I hadn't seen in years. You have the same heart as my son." Nam's heart raced as he processed her words. A part of him felt flattered, but another part felt an unsettling weight of expectation. "Do you think I'm your son?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," she replied, her voice cracking. "But there's a connection I can't ignore. It's as if I've waited all this time for you to walk into my life." Before he could respond, Mai reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph. She held it out to him, her hands trembling. "This is him, my son Aiden." Nam took the photograph hesitantly. As he looked at the image, his breath caught in his throat. The boy in the picture had dark hair and bright eyes, and he bore an uncanny resemblance to Nam himself as a child. He began, but the words fell short as confusion swirled in his mind. What does this mean? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I was afraid," Mai admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid of what it would mean for both of us. I thought if I could bring you into my life, I could find a way to make things right, but I didn't want to burden you with the truth right away." Nam felt a storm brewing inside him, a mix of anger, betrayal, and a flicker of hope. "You manipulated me! You wanted to create a family out of a lie!" "No," she exclaimed, stepping closer. "I wanted to protect you, to give you a chance at a better life. I thought I could find a way to heal the wounds of the past." With a heavy heart, Nam shook his head. "You don't understand. I'm not that boy. I'm not your son. I'm a man trying to survive, trying to save my family. I can't be a replacement for someone you lost." Tears streamed down Mai's cheeks as she reached for him. "Nam, please. I know I made a terrible mistake. I just wanted to hold on to the hope of having my son back." Nam stepped back, feeling a mix of pity and frustration. "Hope shouldn't be built on lies, Mai. You've taken my life and twisted it into something I never wanted." The storm outside rumbled, echoing the turmoil in his heart. Nam turned away, clutching the photograph tightly in his hand, feeling the weight of his own identity slip further from his grasp. He needed to escape, to find clarity, away from the suffocating walls of the mansion. "Nam," Mai called after him, her voice trembling. "Please don't go. We can figure this out together." But Nam couldn't bear to hear her plead any longer. He stepped out of the library and into the cold embrace of the storm, feeling the rain batter against his skin, a cleansing that seemed desperately needed for his fractured soul. As he walked away from the mansion, he felt both liberated and lost, the truth of his existence swirling in chaos around him. Who was he now? A husband? A son? Or merely a pawn in a game neither of them fully understood? Nam's heart raced as he stood in the dimly lit room, the air thick with the weight of the revelations that had just unfolded. The photograph in his hand felt like a burning brand against his skin, a tangible connection to a past he had never known, but was now inextricably linked to. The boy in the picture was unmistakably him. His youthful face framed by dark hair, eyes wide with innocence and wonder. He could hardly comprehend the gravity of what Mai had just revealed. The woman he had married out of desperation was in fact his mother, the very person he had lost so many years ago. "Nam?" Mai's voice trembled, breaking through the haze of shock, enveloping him. She stepped closer, her eyes brimming with tears. "I know this is overwhelming, but please, you have to believe me. I never wanted to deceive you." He turned away, the walls of the room seeming to close in on him. You lied to me. You manipulated me into marrying you. How could you do this?" His voice was strained, a mixture of anger and pain. The truth felt like a betrayal, a wound that cut, deeper than any physical injury. Mai's expression turned desperate. "I had no choice. When I saw you that day in the street, I recognized you immediately. After all these years, I thought I'd lost my chance to find you again. I thought if I could bring you into my life, I could protect you. I thought I could be your mother again." Her voice cracked, and she looked down at her hands, twisting the fabric of her dress. "I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to keep you close." Nam shook his head, trying to dispel the memories flooding back, the feelings of abandonment, the nights spent wondering why his mother had left him. "You think this is love? You think putting me in a cage of luxury and lies is love? You took my life away." His voice echoed in the silence of the room, each word laced with anguish. Mai took a step forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "I understand why you're angry. I would be too, but please let me explain. When your father took you from me, I was devastated. For years I searched everywhere, but I was powerless. I thought I had lost you forever. Then the day I saw you, I was terrified that you would slip away again. This marriage, it was my way of bringing you back into my life. By lying to me, by pretending to be someone you're not." Nam's voice was low, filled with disbelief. "You may have found me, but you didn't bring me back. You just created a new prison." Mai's eyes glistened with tears as she stepped closer, her voice softening. "Nam, I never wanted to hurt you. All I wanted was to be your mother again. I thought that if I could show you how much I care, you would understand. I wanted to make up for lost time. I wanted to give you everything I couldn't before." Nam's chest tightened at her words. The longing he had felt for a mother's love surged within him, battling against the betrayal that now filled his heart. "You think that just because you have money you can buy my love. You can't replace the years I lost or the pain I felt. I had to grow up without you. I had to fend for myself and my siblings. What do you know of sacrifice?" His voice trembled as he fought to keep his emotions in check. Mai's face crumpled, the weight of her guilt visible in every line of her face. "I know more than you think, Nam. Every day without you has been a torment. I've lived with the regret of not being there for you. I thought if I could just have you back, I could show you that I'm not the same woman I was then. I've changed." "Changed?" Nam scoffed, disbelief etched on his features. "You think wearing a fancy dress and living in a mansion makes you different. You're still hiding the truth, still keeping me in the dark." He hesitated, his heart aching with the conflict raging inside him. "Are you even capable of loving me for who I am?" "I love you," Mai insisted, her voice breaking. "I love you more than anything. Please, let me show you. Let me prove it to you. I've waited so long for this chance. You're my son, my flesh and blood. I would do anything to have you in my life." Her eyes searched his, a raw vulnerability. Shining through, Nam stepped back, shaking his head, feeling overwhelmed by the flood of emotions. "You don't get to decide what's best for me. You made choices for both of us without considering how I would feel. You took away my agency, my right to choose my own path." He paused, taking a deep breath as he felt the air grow heavier around him. "I can't just forget everything and act like this is normal." "Please, Nam," she said, her voice pleading. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to make it right. I want to be the mother you need. I'll do whatever it takes." But Nam felt a wave of confusion wash over him. The idea of having a mother again was intoxicating, yet the way she had gone about it left him feeling more lost than ever. "You can't just fix this with promises, Mai. This isn't a fairy tale. You can't just wave a magic wand and expect everything to be okay." Mai's shoulders slumped, and for a moment she seemed to age before his eyes. I know it's not that simple, but I'm willing to try if you are. I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll let me." Nam's heart softened as he looked into her eyes. He saw the sorrow, the longing, the desperation. The woman standing before him was not just a stranger or a manipulator. She was his mother, flawed and human, desperately trying to reclaim a part of her life that had been stolen from her. It was a painful truth, but it was also a truth he had longed for. "Let's start with the truth," he said finally, his voice steadier now. "No more lies, no more secrets. I need to know everything. Why did you let him take me? What happened afterward I need to understand." Mai nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'll tell you everything, I promise, but please, let's take it one step at a time. I don't want to lose you again." Nam took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. In that space between them, a fragile thread began to weave their stories together, a chance at healing, a pathway to understanding. It wouldn't be easy, but perhaps, just perhaps, they could find a way to bridge the chasm that had kept them apart for so long. Nam sat at the edge of his bed, the weight of the world pressing down on his chest. The shadows of the evening crept into the room, wrapping around him like a suffocating blanket. He could hear the distant sounds of Saigon, a city that had become both a sanctuary and a prison. The luxury of his new life felt like a gilded cage, and the opulence of the mansion stood in stark contrast to the struggles he had known. He glanced at the ornate clock on the wall. It ticked away the seconds of his increasingly tumultuous life. After the wedding ceremony, which had been a farce in his eyes, Nam had retreated into the solitude of his room. The echoes of laughter and clinking glasses from the reception drifted up the grand staircase, reminding him that he was supposed to be celebrating. Instead, he felt like an imposter trapped in a role that didn't belong to him. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion and anger, thoughts spiraling with each heartbeat. Just then, there was soft knock on the door. It was Mai, her silhouette framed in the dim light of the hallway. "Nam, can I come in?" He hesitated, emotions swirling within him. Sure," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Mai stepped inside, her presence commanding despite her delicate frame. She wore a flowing white dress that accentuated her elegance, but her eyes were filled with something that resembled dread. "I wanted to check on you. The reception is still going on downstairs." Nam crossed his arms, feeling the tension between them. "I'm not in the mood for celebrations," he said sharply, looking away to avoid her gaze. "Everything feels so surreal." Mai took a step closer, her brow furrowing with concern. "I understand. This is a lot to process, but what you want to tell me how lucky I am to be married to you? How I should be grateful for this life?" Nam interrupted, his frustration bubbling over. "I didn't ask for this, Mai. I didn't ask to be part of your world." The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Mai's expression softened as she took a deep breath. "I know it seems that way, but I promise you my intentions are genuine. I didn't want to manipulate you, Nam. I thought this would give us both a chance." "A chance at what?" He shot back, his voice rising. "To pretend that everything is fine? To live in a mansion filled with secrets? You think this is a fairy tale?" Mai lowered her gaze, her voice trembling slightly. "I never meant for it to be like this. I wanted to keep you safe, to find a way back to you." Nam's heart raced at her words, confusion clouding his thoughts. "What do you mean, find a way back to me?" She hesitated, tears glistening in her eyes. "There are things about my past that I haven't told you, things that I thought I could keep hidden, but I see now that it's tearing us apart." "Then tell me," he demanded, his voice firm yet laced with desperation. "Tell me everything." Mai took a deep breath, and for a moment the air felt charged with unspoken truths. 23 years ago I lost my son. My ex-husband took him away from me during a custody battle. I thought I would never see him again. When I saw you Day in the street. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I thought I could finally have a second chance. Nam's heart raced as he processed her words, a mixture of disbelief and anger flooding him. You mean to tell me that you orchestrated all of this just to get me back into your life by marrying me? I didn't know how else to find you, Nam, she cried, her voice breaking. I thought if I could bring you into my life, I could protect you and give you the life you deserve. I wanted to show you that I'm not just the woman in the mansion. I'm your mother, and I've been searching for you all these years. The revelation hung in the air between them, heavy and charged. Nam felt as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet, his world tilting into a chaotic spiral. You're my mother, he stammered, his mind racing back to the fragments of memories from his childhood moments that felt hazy and distant. How could you do this to me? I was desperate, Mai exclaimed, stepping closer, her hands trembling as she reached for him. I thought if I could have you near me, I could protect you from everything that had hurt us in the past. I thought I could make amends for all the years lost. Nam recoiled, stepping back as if struck. You think this is making amends? You've taken my life and turned it upside down. Do you have any idea what it feels like to be a pawn in your game? Mai's face fell, her own pain evident as she fought back tears. I didn't see it that way. I thought I was giving you a chance at a better life. I thought I could give us both a fresh start. Fresh start, Nam echoed, incredulous. By lying to me, by making me marry you under false pretenses. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed to take care of my brothers? I thought I was doing this for them, for us. But it was all a lie. The silence that followed felt like a chasm, vast and empty. Mai's shoulders sagged, her facade of strength crumbling. I know I've hurt you, Nam. I never wanted to deceive you. I wanted to protect you, to save you from a life of hardship. I thought you'd understand. Nam shook his head, a storm of conflicting emotions raging within him. You think this is understanding? You think that just because you're my mother, I should accept everything blindly? You've taken away my choice, my freedom. I just wanted to bring you home. Mai whispered, her voice shaky. I thought we could heal together. Home. Nam's voice cracked as he spoke, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. This isn't home. This is a prison. I don't even know who you are anymore. Mai's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she stepped forward, her voice pleading. Please. Nam, I know I made mistakes, but I'm here now. We can figure this out together. I promise I'll do better. Just give me a chance. Nam felt the weight of her words, the desperation in her plea. But the hurt was too fresh, too raw. You can't just erase the years of pain with promises. You've shattered everything I thought I knew. He turned away, unable to look at her any longer. The truth had changed everything, and the once familiar contours of his life now felt alien and distorted. Mai's voice broke through his thoughts, a whisper laced with vulnerability. Nam, I love you. I've always loved you. The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Nam closed his eyes, his heart aching. Love isn't enough to fix this, Mai. With that, he stepped past her, leaving her standing in the doorway, a silhouette of regret and longing. As he descended the grand staircase, he felt a mixture of anger and sorrow coursing through him. The mansion, which had once seemed like a dream, now felt like a labyrinth of pain, and he was lost within its walls. As he exited into the cool night air, Nam's heart raced with uncertainty. The city was alive around him, lights twinkling like distant stars, each one a reminder of the life he had left behind, the life he had fought so hard to build. And yet he felt more alone than ever. Nam stood at the edge of the park, his heart racing as he replayed the events of the day in his mind. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over Saigon, but the beauty of the evening felt miles away from his reality. He had just saved an elderly woman from a violent mugging, a moment that had left him bruised and shaken. Now, as he walked the familiar streets, the weight of the world pressed heavily on his shoulders. He had always been the protector, the one who looked after his younger siblings, sacrificing his own dreams for their well-being. But today was different. Today he had crossed paths with Mai, a powerful businesswoman whose gratitude had felt overwhelming, almost surreal. She had invited him to dinner, a gesture that seemed both generous and mysterious. What could a woman like her possibly want with someone like him? As he approached his modest home, the laughter of his siblings echoed in the air, a sound that warmed his heart, even amid the turmoil swirling within him. Their faces lit up when they spotted him, a brief distraction from the struggles that loomed over their lives. "Nam, you're back," his youngest brother Tui exclaimed, sprinting toward him. "Did you eat yet?" Nam asked, ruffling Tui's hair affectionately. "We saved some rice for you." His sister Lin chimed in, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Nam's heart swelled with pride. Despite their circumstances, his siblings managed to find joy. He squeezed Tui's shoulder, but the moment of happiness was fleeting, replaced by the gnawing uncertainty of what lay ahead. "Nam, why are you all bruised?" Lin asked, her brow furrowing with concern. "It's nothing, just a little accident." "At work," Nam replied, forcing a smile. He didn't want to worry them with the details of the day's events, especially the strange new connection forming with Mai. After dinner, as the siblings gathered around the small table, Nam's mind wandered. Back to the dinner invitation. What was he supposed to say? Should he accept? Would it be right to step into a world so far removed from his own Nam? Lin's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "Are you okay? You seem far away." "Just tired," he said, shaking his head to clear the fog. "I have to work early tomorrow." As the night wore on, Nam lay in his small room staring at the ceiling. The image of Mai's kind face filled his mind. She had been so grateful, so earnest in her desire to thank him, and yet the idea of marrying her sent chills down his spine. Could he truly accept such an unconventional arrangement? The next few days passed in a blur of uncertainty. Nam found himself avoiding the news, fearful of the headlines that would undoubtedly mock him for even considering Mai's proposal. But the thought of his siblings' future loomed larger than his pride. One afternoon, while he was working at a construction site, a familiar voice cut through the noise of hammers and machinery. "Nam!" Mai called her figure, emerging from the throng of workers. She was dressed in a tailored suit, her presence commanding attention even amidst the chaos. Nam's heart raced. "Ms. Mai," he stammered, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see you," she said, her eyes sparkling with determination. "I wanted to talk about our conversation." "About—" Nam's voice trailed off, uncertainty washing over him. "About our future together," she replied, her tone serious yet warm. "I know this is unexpected, but I believe we can create something beautiful." Nam's mind raced. "But we don't know each other. I mean, I'm just a laborer. You're a businesswoman." "Labels don't define us, Nam," she said firmly. "What matters is our connection. You showed immense courage the other day. You have a good heart. That's rare." He looked down, grappling with the weight of her words. "But marrying you, it feels wrong. I don't want to be seen as someone who only wants your money." "I don't care about that," Mai said, stepping closer, her voice a soothing balm. "This isn't just about a transaction, it's about companionship. You'll be helping me as much as I'll be helping you. Think of your siblings." Her gaze pierced through his defenses, and he felt the familiar tug of responsibility. "I just don't want to be a laughing stock," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Mai reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Only you can decide what this means, but think about it. You have the chance to provide for your family, to change their lives, and I'm offering you a way out of the shadows." Nam swallowed hard, the weight of her proposition pressing down on him. "I need time." he finally replied, meeting her gaze. "I can't make this decision lightly." "Of course," she said, her expression softening. "Take all the time you need. Just remember I'm here if you want to talk." As she turned to leave, Nam felt a flicker of hope mingled with fear. Could he truly take such a leap? Later that evening, as he sat on the porch with his brothers, Nam felt a sense of conflict brewing within him. He watched Tui and Lin play their laughter, a reminder of why he worked so hard. "Nam," Lin's voice broke through his thoughts again. "Are you still thinking about that lady?" He hesitated, not wanting to reveal too much. "Maybe. She's interesting." "What does she want?" Tui asked, his curiosity piqued. "Just to help us?" Nam replied, his voice steady. "But it's complicated." "Can't she just give us money?" Tui suggested innocently. "It's not that simple, Tui," Nam said, ruffling his brother's hair again. "People like her, they don't just give things away." "Why not?" Lin chimed in. "Isn't that nice?" Nam sighed, looking out at the street where the sun had dipped. Below the horizon, sometimes people want more than just to give. They want connections, relationships, things that can't be bought. "But we need help," Tui said, his voice small. Nam felt a pang of guilt. "I know, and I'm trying to figure it out. Just trust me." As the darkness enveloped them, Nam's mind returned to Mai. The warmth of her presence lingered, her offer hanging in the air like an unspoken promise. He knew he had to make a choice soon, one that could change everything for his family. In the quiet of the night, the shadows crept closer, and Nam felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him. Would he step into the light or remain in the shadows, forever bound by his past? The answer remained elusive, but one thing was clear: the journey ahead would not be easy. And as he lay in bed that night, he realized that whatever path he chose, it would forever alter the course of his life, and that of his siblings. Nam stood in the dimly lit library of Mai's mansion, the silence wrapping around him like a thick fog. He could feel the weight of the diary he had stumbled upon just moments before pressing against his palm. It was leather-bound and old, its edges frayed, but the content inside was what made his heart race. The pages were filled with elegant script, a woman's thoughts laid bare, and each word seemed to pulse with emotion. With trembling fingers, he opened the diary to the first page, the faint scent of aged paper wafting up to him. The date at the top was over 2 decades old. As he began to read, he felt as if he were stepping into the soul of the woman who had so dramatically entered his life. "Today marks the beginning of my greatest fear." The ink bled through the pages, telling of a woman's despair, her longing, and her relentless hope. Mai wrote about her son, the one taken from her, the child she had desperately fought to keep. Nam's breath caught in his throat. With each line, he felt a connection, an unexplainable bond forming between him and the woman whose life he had unknowingly disrupted. "I can still hear his laughter, the way he used to chase the butterflies in the garden." He flipped through the pages, absorbing the raw emotions, the joy of motherhood, the agony of loss. The entries grew darker, filled with regret and sorrow, as Mai recounted her struggles after her husband had taken their son away. The words were haunting, echoing in the empty room. "Without him, I am a shell of the woman I used to be. I must find him before it's too late." Nam felt a knot tighten in his chest. The pain in her words mirrored the loneliness he had carried for so long. He had always been an outsider, fighting for survival, in a world that seemed indifferent to his existence. But here, in this diary, he found someone who understood the depths of his struggles, someone who had fought her own battles just as he had. Suddenly the door creaked open, breaking the heavy silence. Nam quickly closed the diary, his heart racing as he turned to see Mai standing in the doorway. She looked frail, her face drawn and pale, but her eyes shone with a fierce determination. "Nam," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "What are you doing here?" He held the diary tightly, his mind racing as he searched for the right words. I found this," he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to invade your privacy." Mai stepped inside, her gaze piercing as she approached him. "You shouldn't have looked," she said, her tone a mix of sadness and resolve. "It's my past, a past I've tried to keep buried." "But it's not just your past, is it?" Nam interjected, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "It's about your son. You wrote about him, about how much you love him." Tears glistened in Mai's eyes as she took a step closer, her emotions raw and exposed. "I thought I lost him forever," she confessed, her voice breaking. "When I saw you that day in Saigon, my heart recognized you before my mind could comprehend. I thought I could keep you safe." Nam shook his head, overwhelmed by the weight of her admission. "But you manipulated me. You used me to get closer to the son you lost. All this time I thought I was just a husband in a ridiculous marriage, and now I find out I'm your mother." Mai finished for him, her voice barely a whisper. "I had no choice. I was terrified of losing you again. I thought if I could keep you close, I could protect you." "Protect me?" Nam's voice rose in disbelief. "You've put me in a cage. The world sees me as a joke, as nothing more than a gold digger. I'm not just some pawn in your game." She stepped back, her face falling. "I never wanted this for you, Nam. I only wanted to be with you, to know you again. I thought if I could make you my husband, I could hold on to you. I thought I could make up for lost time." He felt a rush of anger and sorrow wash over him. "You've taken away my choice. I deserve to know my own life, not be manipulated into a role that you designed." Mi's eyes glimmered with tears. "I know I've done wrong, but I promise you my intentions were pure. I just wanted to have a second chance at being your mother." Nam's heart ached at her sincerity, but the betrayal cut deep. He turned away, gripping the diary tightly. "You should have told me the truth from the beginning. Instead, you kept me in the dark, and now I don't even know who I am anymore." A heavy silence fell between them, the air thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Nam felt as if he were standing on the edge of a precipice, teetering between anger and understanding, between the mother he had lost and the woman who had deceived him. "Namamai," said, her voice pleading, "please understand. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could protect you from the world, from the pain I endured. I thought—" "You thought wrong." He cut her off, his voice steady, but laced with pain. "You didn't just take my identity, you took away my chance to choose my own path." He turned to face her, the conflict raging inside him. "I need time to think, to process all of this. You should have trusted me with the truth, Mai. Instead, you've created a mess that I don't know how to clean up." Mai looked at him, her expression a mixture of regret and understanding. "I'll give you space. Just know that I love you even if I've made terrible mistakes." With that, she stepped back, allowing him the distance he needed. As she left the library, Nam felt the full weight of her words settle on his shoulders. He closed his eyes, the diary clutched tightly in his hands, and for the first time he felt the shattering of his world settle into a painful clarity. He was not just a boy trying to survive, he was a son searching for a home. But where could he find it when the very foundations of his existence had been built on secrets and lies? Nam stood outside the imposing mansion, its grandeur a stark contrast to the life he had known in the bustling streets of Saigon. The smooth marble facade glistened under the fading sunlight, and the sprawling gardens were meticulously arranged, a testament to wealth and privilege. Yet as he stepped closer, a knot of unease twisted in his stomach. This was not just a house, it was a prison, built of luxury and expectation. Inside, the air was cool, but Nam felt a chill as he entered the grand foyer. The high ceilings loomed over him, and the opulent decor felt suffocating. He glanced around, taking in the lavish chandeliers and the priceless art adorning the walls. Each piece seemed to mock him, a reminder of the world he was now a part of, a world that felt foreign and unwelcoming. "Nam, welcome home." Mai's voice rang out cheerful and warm, yet it held an undercurrent of something he couldn't quite place. She emerged from a side hallway, a vision of elegance in a flowing dress that accentuated her poised demeanor. "I hope you're settling in well." "Thank you, Mai," he replied, forcing a smile. The word home felt like a heavy weight on his shoulders. How could this place filled with riches ever feel like home, when his heart was still tethered to the struggles of his past? "Dinner will be ready soon. I thought we could have a quiet evening together to get to know each other better," she said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Nam nodded, though a part of him recoiled at the thought of spending the evening in what felt like a gilded cage. "Sure," he replied, trying to hide his apprehension. As they walked towards the dining room, Nam couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, as if the very walls harbored secrets they were unwilling to share. Mai gestured for him to take a seat at the long, elegantly set table. Crystal goblets caught the light, and the aroma of gourmet dishes filled the air. He felt a pang of guilt. It was a feast far beyond what he had ever been able to provide for his brothers. "Isn't this lovely?" Mai said, her voice laced with genuine delight. "I wanted to make this special for us." "It's beautiful," Nam replied, his eyes wandering to the elaborate centerpieces. "You must entertain often." "Only on special occasions," she said, her gaze drifting momentarily. "But this is a special occasion for me." As they began to eat, Nam's mind raced. He couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider in this opulent world. The food was exquisite, and he forced himself to take small bites, unsure of how to navigate this unfamiliar territory. Mai chatted animatedly about her business ventures, her successes, and the challenges she faced. Yet beneath her polished exterior, he sensed an underlying sorrow. "Nam, tell me more about your life before all of this," she said gently, her tone shifting to one of empathy. He hesitated, the weight of his past heavy on his heart. "I grew up in a small village. I had dreams of becoming an engineer, but after my parents died, I had to take care of my younger brothers. I've worked hard to keep them fed and in school." "I admire your dedication," Mai replied, her eyes softening. "It takes a strong person to sacrifice their own dreams for family." Nam shrugged, a flicker of shame coursing through him. "It's just what I had to do. Sometimes life presents us with unexpected paths," she said, her voice trailing off. There was an intensity in her gaze that made him uneasy. "And sometimes those paths lead us to surprising places. Like this?" Nam asked, his voice laced with skepticism. "Exactly," she said, her expression firm. "But I want you to know that I see you for who you are, not just as my husband or a means to an end." Nam felt a flicker of hope at her words, but it was quickly extinguished by doubt. "Then why this marriage, Mai? Why me?" She paused, her fork suspended in midair as she searched for the right words. "It's complicated, Nam. I want to protect you, to give you and your brothers a life you never thought possible. I know it's unconventional, but I believe there's a reason we found each other." "Protect me," he echoed, confusion clouding his thoughts. "From what?" "From a world that can be cruel," she replied, her eyes narrowing slightly, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability. "You have a kind heart, and people will take advantage of that if you let them." Nam leaned back in his chair, processing her words. "But marrying you, it feels wrong. I barely know you. There's so much we don't understand about each other." "Then let's understand," she urged, her voice steady. "Let's take this time to learn about one another. I know you feel trapped right now, but I promise to make this work. You are not alone anymore, Nam." As the conversation flowed, Nam found himself torn between the warmth of Mai's words and the cold reality of their situation. He could sense the walls closing in around him, the expectations mounting. He felt as though he was standing at the edge of a precipice, unsure whether to leap or retreat. Later that night after dinner, Nam wandered through the vast halls of the mansion. He needed airspace to breathe away from the weight of riches and expectations. The moonlight filtered through the large windows, casting shadows that danced across the polished floors. He stepped outside into the garden, the cool night air refreshing against his skin. Nam, Mai's voice called softly from behind him. He turned to see her standing at the door, her silhouette framed by the light from inside. "Are you okay?" "I just needed some fresh air," he replied, trying to mask the turmoil brewing within him. "Sometimes it helps to step away and reflect," she said, joining him outside. "The night can bring clarity." Nam gazed up at the stars, feeling their distant light echoing his own feelings of isolation. "Clarity or confusion," he murmured. Mai took a step closer, her expression earnest. "I want to help you, Nam, more than you realize. You have a chance to change everything for your family." "And what about you?" he asked, turning to face her. "What do you get out of this?" She paused, the vulnerability in her eyes, making his heart ache. "I get a chance to reconnect with someone I lost a long time ago, someone I've been searching for in all the wrong places." Her words hung between them heavy with unspoken truths. The moon illuminated her face, and for the first time he saw the pain behind her composure. There was a depth to Mai that intrigued him, but it also frightened him. What other secrets lay hidden beneath the surface of their lives? "Let's start fresh," she suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. "We can redefine what this means for both of us. It doesn't have to be just a marriage, it can be in partnership." Nam nodded slowly, the weight of her proposition settling heavily on his shoulders. The night stretched out before them, a canvas of possibilities and uncertainties. As he stood there, the shadows of his past began to blend with the light of a new beginning, and for the first time he felt the faintest glimmer of hope. Nam stood in the shadows of the opulent mansion, his heart racing as he processed the whirlwind of revelations that had turned his world upside down. The luxurious surroundings felt foreign to him, a gilded cage that amplified his sense of isolation. He had exchanged the hardships of his life in the streets of Saigon for a life of affluence, yet every corner of the mansion whispered secrets that gnawed at his soul. As he wandered through the grand halls, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was suffocating within the walls meant to protect him. The chandeliers sparkled, casting intricate shadows that danced across the floor, but they did little to illuminate the darkness that had settled in his heart. He thought of Mai, her gentle smile, masking a lifetime of pain, and he felt a pang of guilt. How could he reconcile the truth of their relationship with the betrayal he felt? Numb. Her voice cut through, his thoughts soft yet commanding. He turned to see Mai, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Can we talk?" He hesitated, the memory of their last confrontation still fresh in his mind. "What is there to say, Mai?" He replied, his voice steady but laced with hurt. "You married me under false pretenses. You deceived me." "I know," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But please let me explain. You deserve to know the truth. I never meant for any of this to happen." Nam crossed his arms, a gesture of both protection and defiance. "You didn't mean to deceive me, or you didn't mean for me to find out." Mai's expression shifted, a flicker of regret crossing her features. "Both. I thought I was doing what was best for both of us. I thought you would understand." "If you knew the whole story." "Understand?" Nam scoffed, disbelief coloring his tone. "You thought I would understand that you manipulated me into becoming your husband to reclaim a son you lost decades ago." Please, Nam, she pleaded, taking a step closer. I was desperate. The day I met you, I saw a glimpse of the sun. I lost. Your smile, your kindness, it brought back memories I had buried deep. I thought if I married you, I could protect you and maybe reclaim the love I lost. He shook his head, anger bubbling to the surface. That's not love, Mai. That's possession. You don't get to decide what's best for me. I'm not a pawn in your game. Mai's eyes filled with tears and she looked away, taking a deep breath as if to steady herself. You're right. I don't have the right to make those decisions for you. I've lost so much already, and I thought I could fix everything by bringing you into my life. But I see now how wrong I was. Nam challenged, his voice rising, because all I see is a woman who's willing to trap her own son to fulfill her desires. Do you even care about what I want? Mai looked at him, her eyes searching his for understanding. I care more than you can imagine. I thought if I gave you everything you ever wanted, security, a future, I could show you how much I love you as your mother. Love. Nam's voice broke slightly, the weight of the word hanging heavy in the air. What you call love feels more like a prison. I've spent my entire life fighting for my freedom, and now I find out that my own mother, my own blood, was the one building the bars. She stepped forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. I never wanted to imprison you, Nam. I wanted to protect you. I wanted to give you what was taken from me. You don't know how hard it's been to live with that loss every single day. Then let me go, Nam said, his voice firm yet pained. Let me find my own way. I don't want your money or your mansion. I just want to be me. May's face crumpled, and he could see the battle within her, between a mother's instinct to hold on and the realization that she was losing him. I can't lose you again. I won't survive it. Then you need to understand that this isn't the way, he replied, his voice softening. I need to discover who I am outside of your shadow. I need to find my own path. A silence fell between them, heavy with unspoken words and the weight of their shared history. Nam could see the glimmer of hope in her eyes, but it was laced with desperation. Please, Mai said, her voice barely above a whisper. Give me a chance to make it right. Let's start over. As mother and son, not as husband and wife. I'll help you, and we can build a life together, a real life. Nam searched her face, torn between the love he felt for the woman who had given him life and the anger that surged within him from her actions. You want to build a life together? He asked, skepticism coloring his tone. But on what foundation? Lies and manipulation? No. She shook her head fervently. On truth. I'll tell you everything. I'll show you everything. Just please don't walk away from me again. He sighed, the burden of her plea weighing heavily on his conscience. I don't know, Mai. I don't know if I can trust you anymore. Then let me earn that trust, she implored, her eyes bleeding. Let me prove to you that I can be the mother you deserve, that I can be better than I was before. Nam took a step back, the distance between them feeling like a chasm. This isn't just about you and me, Mai. It's about the years I lost, the pain I've endured. I need time to process all of this. I can't make any promises right now. I understand, she whispered, her voice trembling. Just know that I will fight for you, for us. I won't give up. With that, Nam turned away, the weight of her words lingering in his mind. As he walked through the grand halls of the mansion, he felt the shadows of their past enveloping him, a constant reminder of the choices that had led them to this moment. He needed to find his own way to reclaim the pieces of himself that had been lost along the way. And as he stepped into the sunlight of the courtyard, he realized that the journey ahead would not be easy. But for the first time, he felt the flicker of hope, a small flame igniting within him, urging him to seek the truth and to carve out a future that was truly his own. Nam, stood in the dimly lit room of the mansion that had become both a refuge and a prison. The echoes of laughter from the grand hall faded as he retreated into the solitude of his thoughts. He had spent the better part of the day watching Mai from a distance, her figure moving gracefully among the guests, but her eyes seemed clouded with a sorrow that mirrored his own. The opulence of the mansion felt suffocating, a gilded cage that both fascinated and repelled him. The weight of his decision loomed over him like a storm cloud. He had agreed to marry Mai not out of love, but from a sense of responsibility to his brothers. Yet the more time he spent with her, the more he sensed an unspoken bond, a connection that transcended the circumstances of their union. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that their marriage was built on a foundation of secrets and unresolved. A pain. As he wandered through the expansive halls, Nam's fingers brushed against the intricate carvings on the walls, each telling a story of a life he had only begun to understand. He paused in front of a large portrait of Mai, her youthful beauty captured in oil paint. The woman in the painting seemed distant and ethereal, a stark contrast to the real Mai, who wore the scars of her past like armor. Nam. The soft voice pulled him from his reverie. It was Mai, her expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. "There you are, I was looking for you." He turned to face her, the warmth of her presence momentarily dispelling his inner turmoil. "I just needed some air," he replied, forcing a smile. "It's overwhelming." Mai nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. "I know. It's a lot to take in, but I'm glad you're here. I want us to be a family, to build something beautiful together." Family. He echoed the word, tasting bittersweet on his tongue. He wanted to believe in the dream she offered, but the reality of their situation felt too complicated. "What does that mean for us?" She stepped closer, the scent of jasmine enveloping him. "It means we can support each other, heal together. I've seen you with your brothers. You have a kind heart, Nam. I admire that." Her words struck a chord deep within him. He had always put his family first, sacrificing his own dreams for their sake. But could he truly allow himself to embrace this new life, one that felt so foreign? He began, but she interrupted him, her gaze steady and fierce. "Let me show you something," she said, taking his hand and leading him down a narrow corridor. They descended a staircase that spiraled into the depths of the mansion, a part of the house Nam had never explored. The air grew cooler, and a sense of foreboding settled over him as they approached a heavy wooden door. "Where are we going?" he asked, his heart racing. "To the past," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit room, filled with dusty boxes and old furniture draped in white sheets. The air was thick with the scent of neglect, yet there was an undeniable aura of history. As they entered, Mai moved to a trunk. In the corner, her fingers tracing the worn edges. "This was my son's room," she said, her voice trembling. "He used to play here. I haven't been able to bring myself to clear it out." Nam felt a pang of empathy for her. The loss she had endured was palpable, and it mirrored his own grief for the life he had left behind. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I can't imagine what that must have felt like." Mai opened the trunk, revealing a collection of toys and clothes, remnants of a childhood long gone. "He was taken from me," she whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I thought I would never see him again." Nam felt a knot form in his stomach. "Taken? What do you mean?" Her gaze met his, a storm of emotions swirling within her. "My ex-husband. He took our son during a custody battle. I searched for years but never found him, until that day when you saved me." The revelation hung heavy in the air, and Nam's heart raced as the pieces began to fall into place. You think I'm him?" he stammered, disbelief coursing through him. "I didn't know for sure until I saw you." Mai admitted, her voice choked with emotion. You bear such a striking resemblance to him. I thought I was imagining things, but now I can't deny it." Nam's mind raced the implications of her words, crashing over him like a tidal wave. "You want me to be your son after all these years?" The thought was overwhelming, a mix of fear and curiosity. "It's not just about wanting," she replied, her voice firm but gentle. "It's about finding a way back to each other. I've spent so long in this void, and when I saw you that day, it felt like a piece of my heart had returned." He took a step back, grappling with the reality of her claim. "But I'm not that boy anymore. I've lived a different life, one filled with struggle and pain. I've fought for my family, for my brothers. I can't just step into a role like that." May reached out her hand, resting on his arm. "I understand, but you don't have to choose between your past and your future. We can build something new together. We can heal." The sincerity in her eyes tugged at his heart. He wanted to believe, her to embrace the possibility of a family he had longed for. But the fear of losing himself in the process was paralyzing. "Give me time," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to process all of this." "Of course," Mai replied, her expression softening. "Take all the time you need. Just know that I'm here, and I will always be here." As they stood in the dim room, filled with memories, Nam felt the weight of his past pressing down on him. But within that weight was also a flicker of hope, a chance to redefine his identity. Perhaps, in the shadows of their shared pain, they could find a way to weave their stories together into something beautiful. The journey ahead would not be easy, but as he looked into Mai's eyes, he realized that he was no longer alone. In the labyrinth of their intertwined fates, there lay the promise of healing and the possibility of a love that could transcend the darkness of their pasts.